Welcome everyone to this Thursday night Dharma talk at Mountain Cloud. Welcome in the Zendo, welcome in the cloud. A week ago today, we were sitting in the depths of a 5-day sesshin, the Zendo brimming at capacity, and online participants gathered in. Yamada Ryo'un Roshi, the abbot of Sambo Zen, traveled from Japan to Santa Fe to guide us. He was tired in the aftermath of having had COVID, but he came just for this and taught with inexhaustible energy. The effusion of thanks from those who were here continues to ring out. And really, that sitting is still going on. We are soaking in it here on this rain-soaked evening. One of the joys of this sesshin last week was that Sarah organized what we called a garden party for the day after the session ended. And a number of people from out of town stayed. There was revelry, music, food, a raffle, and good conversation filled with impressions from the sesshin. In the days since, I've had the joy of meeting with students and hearing about their experience. Of course, not everyone, just some. And I'd like to share just a bit of that in this place that's so soaked in it. So for his first Teisho, as is the tradition, Ryo'un Roshi talked about the koan Moo, a case we know as Joshu's dog. One phrase in that talk jumped out for several people. The monk comes asking, does a dog have Buddha nature or not? Joshu said, Moo. Moo. No. It's not about having or not having Buddha nature or not. Moo. No dog, Roshi said. That's what a dog is. He offered us this instruction somewhere along the way to carry Moo in your pocket like you would a bottle of water on a hike. And just take it out throughout the day. Now and then, a moment here, a moment there. Towards the end of that talk, Ryo'un Roshi made the move to science and the Quantum Multiverse. He's very interested in the direction physics is heading. And as an example, Roshi took up the nucleus of an atom, a tiny ball of energy, 0.01% of the volume of the atom, and 99.9 and some more nines % of its mass. So fun to see him marveling at that. world. Ryo'un Roshi said, science is coming ever closer to discovering the emptiness of everything. But the reason that it can't arrive fully there, it can't arrive, is there's still someone here looking. Still the person looking at this multiverse. This side, he said, has to fall away to really see this world. You have to let go of this side. And then, no side. Empty. And out of this emptiness, oneness. There's nothing to divide. One capacity. He said that phrase a few times. It can do anything. Again and again, Roshi urged us to find our true self, to realize who and what you really are, to awaken to this awake world. I was struck when he said in one talk, I do not want to lie to myself. And a few sentences later, I do not want to deceive myself. He's talking about his true self, the integrity of being what you are, in a sense, matching yourself to your true self. Practicing with Moo is exactly about this. One student at the sesshin was sitting near the Roshi's sitting place, facing the wall, so not seeing. But it was palpable when he was in the room, sitting with us. She said, there is no person sitting there. And then he's sitting for the whole world. Empty. No person. One compassion. Meeting with the Roshi, this student was struck by the just this of things. Nothing added. Later she said about our life, we really can enjoy each thing just as it is. Like right now, sound of rain. Wonder if you could hear it online. Another student who sat the sesshin online had an experience with the wind. One day in particular, it was wildly windy in here all afternoon, howling through the zendo and audible online. 1,500 miles away, it also happened to be windy. One wind. And she had a similar experience with the light shining on the zendo floor. You could see it on camera moving across the zendo, illuminating the floor. And where she was sitting in her house, light on the floor. Intimate, she said. One student sitting in the zendo tasted this intimacy as continuity. He said, from the cushion to the mat, to the floor, to the windows, to the sky, to the trees, to the clouds, just one pervading continuity, not even contiguous, this borderless, seamless world. Another student spoke about the immediacy of meals, the explosion in his mouth of one bite of food, and eating together, one body, also walking in the zendo, and this snake that we walked, one walking, wind walking, walls walking. Back at work in the world, that student said, Manchusri on the cushion, Avalokiteshvara off the cushion. The power of this sword, you could say, on the cushion. He said, I needed that. And the heart of compassion acting in the world. As part of the closing of the sesshin, this particular session included a Jii ceremony, literally bows of gratitude. So near the end of the retreat, a young man had a powerful awakening, just walking from the zendo into the dining hall. And suddenly it just fell. So in this more formal way, Ryo'un Roshi acknowledged that experience during his closing comments and then invited this Jii ceremony, this ceremony of giving thanks. Giving thanks to all who shared in this, who brought it about. All of us included, all the ancestors, past, present, future. When one person awakens, the whole world awakens. Finally, just a word about Carmen, dear Dharma friend of many, many years, who came from the Philippines to serve as the Roshi's Jisha, a very extremely helpful. Also did a lot of little guiding around the edges with these sort of extra forms that we were doing. So someone asked Carmen after this, 5 days of all this activity, taking care of the Roshi, going out and bringing him in with incense, taking care of the Doksan line, just taking care all around, all of this. Somebody said, what was the high point for you, Carmen? The sitting. So we carry on. Dōgen calls it continuous practice. After the beauty and intensity of those 5 days, with all of its myriad perspectives and experiences, I turned the page on the calendar to today and it was like, oh, what could I possibly talk about? But then in the wake of all the revelry of sesshin, a koan surfaced. So let's turn to it now. I've never spoken on this case before. It's case 81 in the Shoyuroku, or Book of Equanimity. And the title is Gensha Reaches the Province. So here's the case. It's not long. Gensha came to the province Hoden. He was welcomed with great entertainment. The next day, he asked the elder Shoto, "All the revelry of yesterday, where has it gone?" Shoto held out the corner of his Buddhist garment. Gensha said, "Far from it, no relation at all." So let's take a look. This is Gensha, or Huansha, a great master, highly regarded by Dōgen. Dōgen called him Old Buddha, also Joshu. Not very many. And we might know him, you may know him from his teaching. The whole universe in 10 directions is one bright pearl. That one bright pearl that comes from him. Gensha grew up poor and illiterate in a family of fishers. When he was a young boy, he witnessed his father's drowning and felt utterly helpless in the face of it, couldn't swim. But even so, Gensha became a fisherman. You'd think he might not. But, you know, he did what he'd inherited. And yet, that shock, that loss, that sense of failure left an opening. As Dōgen puts it, when Gensha was about 30 years old, a golden scaled fish came to him unbidden. Such a fitting image for a fisherman. What is it for us, that unbidden golden fish? Fear of death, sense of inadequacy, not enough, this troubled world. Without seeking it, the golden gift of Gensha's own dis-ease leaps into his boat. He follows the tug into a monastery and becomes a disciple of Seppo, another great master. After studying with Seppo for some time, and this story is told in various records, this is Dōgen's version, Gensha sets off on a pilgrimage, as it was the custom, to hone his eye. The night before he leaves, there's a ceremony, and early the next morning, he heads off down the mountain. Walking along in his sandals, Gensha hits his toe on a sharp rock and splits it open. Blood gushes out. In searing pain, he suddenly realizes, if I don't have a body, this no person, where is this pain coming from? He's gone, vanished, and yet blood gushing forth from a wound. Gensha sees emptiness and he sees compassion. He turns around and hobbles back to the monastery. Seppo, Dōgen says, greets him with great surprise. What's happening? Why back so soon? Gensha's first words are telling, though they're variously translated, but something like, I will never deceive others. That line from Ryo'un Roshi just resonates. I cannot deceive others, or I cannot be fooled. Sometimes that's the translation. Not deceive others. There are no others. This one body, empty of any fixed substance and boundless, nothing to divide and nothing outside it. Not a hair's breadth of separation, not even an eyelash. For Gensha, in that sourceless pain, everything is laid bare. Nothing to obscure, nothing to defend. No other, and no self. No possibility of separation. As Roshi says, this one capacity, dynamic, the unfettered fact of who he is. Seppo responds, who doesn't know these words yet? Who else could say them? And then he says, your traveling bag is packed. Why don't you go and study all around? And Gensha answers, Bodh Dharma didn't come to China. You know, famously, Bodh Dharma trekking from India to China. He didn't go anywhere. Huika Eka didn't go to India. There's that legend that he goes back to India after Bodh Dharma dies. Gensha is saying, I can't leave. No one has ever gone anywhere. What's he really talking about? This one capacity. How fitting the case of this koan from years later when Gensha is a renowned master. Gensha came to the province of Hoden. He was welcomed with great entertainment. What is that coming? Great celebration. Would have included food, music, acrobats, maybe a parade. Sometimes it's translated circus. So the next day, day after this revelry, Gensha asks Elder Shoto, all the revelry of yesterday, where has it gone? This Elder Shoto is a senior practitioner and very clear. Wanshi's verse, you know, these Shoyuroku, they each have a verse by this master Wanshi, and here there's a line in his verse that describes this exchange with Gensha. The box and the lid fit together. Two arrows crash right in the middle. All that festivity that was here yesterday, where did it go? Where is it? And Shoto holds out the corner of his Buddhist garment. Here it is. All of it. Yesterday's feast. Or you could just, here it is. Here it is. It's right here. This exchange is actually very pertinent to the fundamental question of life and death. Yesterday, tomorrow, multiverse, omniverse, one tiny nucleus, 8 quadrillion light years. This. Gensha must appreciate Shoto's gesture, his presentation. He responds in kind. Far from it. No relation at all. To our ordinary divided way of hearing, this might sound like a negation, but Wanchi says box and lid. Not just two arrows meeting, crashing in midair. Here it is, right here. Everything that ever was and will be. Far from it. No relation at all. When Shoto lifts the corner of his robe, that is all. Juts forth, exhausting the whole universe. Just that. We take this up in Moo Practice. We hear Moo occupies the whole universe. One bright pearl, 10 directions. Here it is. And then Gensha, far from it, juts forth, occupying the whole. No relation at all, nothing outside it. There is no other. There's also the nuance of this, that as soon as we say, this is it, or I got it, it's gone. Always only here. Nothing added. Where is the sesshin from last week? Where did it go? No relation at all plunges us into this here, now, beyond measure. Even to say no distance can't touch it. So there's nothing to do but taste and see. And let it be intimate. There's a really short passage from the record of Gensha's teaching, where a monk asks Gensha, what is it? What is it? And why is it so hard to realize? Gensha says, because it's too close. In this teaching, there's a comment. Later, Hoden, Master Hoden said, it couldn't be closer. Actually, it's the monk herself. It. This Dharma. Now we can see it, taste it, receive and maintain it. It is you. Your whole body couldn't be closer or more vast. This one capacity, unconditional equality. Each bit empty and entirely unique. Each one. The masters call it a true person. What world might we make if our every action would spring from this true person? I'm reminded of a line paraphrased from Henry. Something like, "This world is one single act of love. Because it's single, because it's one." So I'm going to close with a short passage from Dōgen, from the Bendowa, or On the Endeavor of the Way. He writes, "When just one person does zazen, even one time, they become imperceptibly one with each and all of the myriadness of things and permeate completely all time. It is, for each and everything, one and the same undifferentiated practice, one and the same all-pervading realization. Each and everything is, in its original aspect, endowed with original practice. It cannot be measured or comprehended." Can't be measured. Can't actually say a word about it. But we can do it. We can offer it. Thank you for this shared practice.